Up next, we have a very important part of the press conference, as the next speakers will be the LCS team owners. So we're moving on to the Q&A with team owners. That means that we will be welcoming to the stage Cloud9, Jack Etienne, NRG, Andy Miller, TLC, and Disguised Toast, DSG, Jeremy Wang. So everybody, please, as they come in, round of applause for the team owners. On my cue, not yet. That was a test. You all passed, so good job. As we round them up. Everyone watched the NACL finals, right? Is that Toast one? Alright, there's a prep for you. Some questions. Take my fee anytime. Alright, welcome to the stage. All right, thank you, team owners. And first questions.
What's up, Travis?
Hello.
How's it going? Okay, I've got a banger for you guys. Okay, so this question is for Jack, Andy, and Steve. An NACL team owner was recently quoted by Dexerto as saying, traditional LCS orgs don't really understand how to create content. They're not entertaining, and players are swapped around every year, so there's no storyline. And what you end up with is just kind of nothing. I won't name who this NACL team owner is. What your thoughts are on that quote?
For me? Okay, so totally unexpected question. No, I think Toast has he's right about all that stuff. There is a lot of rotation in LCS. I think a lot of teams aren't making great content. I think a lot of our focus these days is really just be on competitively as good as we can be, and that has been our focus and kind of our pathway to success. And we're not entertainers, like straight up. So I think we have a lot to learn from him and what he's doing, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the league and see if we can level up.
All right. So here's my take on this. An esports team is responsible for generating fandom, and that fandom in professional sports typically happens through some sort of household affinity, right? You grew up in a household and your parents rooted for a certain team, and so thus you become a fan of that team. Or there's some sort of geographical predisposition towards fandom, like you're in a certain city and then you become a fan of that team. And then the third biggest way is that you're a fan of a particular player, and then by proxy, you're a fan of the organization that the player's on. In esports, there wasn't the internet, so our parents didn't root for any esports team. So there's not that kind of affinity, and there's no geographical, for the most part, some in EU. So one would say, oh, well, you just need to have a consistent roster of players. Well, the reality is that you have to make changes because some players don't become motivated to continue to the next season. Life happens, and you have a responsibility to put the best team together to win a championship. And that sometimes means that one player that used to be on the roster is no longer there. So you have to ask yourself, are you building a content creation team, or are you building a team to win a championship? And if your priority lies with winning a championship, then you pick the best players possible. Period, the end of story. There is no, oh, I want to pick this player because their fandom and we're going to sign Bjergsen or Doublelift because they bring content and sponsorship. No, you sign the best players to win. So that's the mentality of an organization like Team Liquid. That being said, you still have to drive fandom. So how do you do that? Well, we have kind of embarked on a goal of figuring out who Team Liquid is. And a lot of people have thought about Team Liquid as kind of like this history brand back in StarCraft, a little elitist, that kind of professional older crowd. Well, how do we fare in the current market? And when we looked at it, we're like, okay, well, you've got the FaZe bros, and you got the 100 Thieves bros, but Team Liquid, we're kind of like peculiar kids, you know? We're a little different, a little geeky, dorky, you know, intellectual, more about myth and innovation and mastery and professionalism. And so for us, we feel like if we can identify our values and weave that into our content and our onboarding and the type of people that work at Team Liquid, that over time, people will start to think of these words when they associate with Team Liquid, and we'll be able to have this kind of gravitational pull towards fandom that won't be relied on a creator or just fatty content or the superficial validation or the clickbaity whatever that's happening on YouTube. Mic drop.
Hi guys, Jay Silver here with Jay Silver Presents. First of all, thank you guys so much for being here. Toast, congratulations on your team winning NACL. And Jack, Andy, and Steve, congratulations not only making Worlds, but making it here this weekend. I want to ask a little bit about the financial struggles, I would say, in the whole league. We just heard from Raul and Carlos about some of the financial state of the league, and I know esports is an expensive organization. Toast, you've said it yourself in this in an interview. I want to know from the four of you guys, just how do you think esports will be able to best succeed in the future financially, despite the hardships that we're seeing within the last few months or so? Anyone can start with that question.
Thank you. Sure. Well, I think we're in for a reset. I think we've been in for a while. I think the hardest part was last year, at least it was for NRG. Just everything came to a halt sponsor-wise in May. We were on our way for a pretty good year, which made everyone, I think, look at their businesses like they should, and we're kind of out of the grow at all costs phase of this business. The three of us were just talking earlier that, you know, this is an early stage industry, like it or not. So you see a lot of entrance into something that has a lot of eyeballs and a lot of potential, and there's a lot of folks who aren't in it for the long run, or people who, you know, just in and out trying to make a buck, and eventually it leaves out, and you get folks like these two guys have been in it for a long time. We've been in it for 8 years now, I guess. We're trying to make a business out of it, so that's, I think, a real important part. We're seeing salaries across the board change. Sponsors are still pretty interested. Like, this isn't a terrible year for sponsorship. The dollar amount might be smaller, but I think that it's going to be healthy, and we'll have folks who want to actually build long-lasting businesses. The question is, can we scale them? Because I'm sure we can get our businesses eventually, when things become more sane across the board, to be profitable businesses, but they're just small businesses. So the big question would be, how do we scale our businesses? And I think a lot of that's going to have to be with the help of the publishers, as well as creating incredible content, as you sort of alluded to in the first question, because we're in the entertainment business, and you can't win every year.
Yeah, I think within esports, it's a pretty top-heavy business, meaning that the organizations that you see on the stage right now, like, we're doing pretty good. You know, the sponsors are very happy. We're delivering value. We're renewing. We're upselling our agreements. We have really great team participation agreements with certain developers that have good shares to teams. I think the ecosystem needs to help a lot of the other teams that are in that 90%. And part of that has to do with the leagues being really healthy so that they can do distributions to the teams in kind of a equitable way for the health of the league. So given the market contraction, what's happening right now, I think, as Andy alluded to, there's going to be kind of a rebirth that will happen where the revenues will be right-sized to costs for esports teams, which will lead to sustainability. One thing that I'm very confident in looking at the quantitative data, is the number of gamers that exists out there. The alpha generation just surpassed the baby boomer generation in terms of total population size globally. You know, gaming is pretty ubiquitous. You know, you just grow up as a gamer. Like, there's going to be more gamers, not less, in the future. And so the economics and kind of like the these tailwinds that we have, they all look really strong. So we're in it for the long haul here. This is just the early innings. You know, this is just the early game right now. We haven't even made it out of the laning phase.
Yeah, a big thing for us is just reducing salary spend, because here at DSU we spend like very little on our players, and we're pretty open about that, and something that unfortunately like players will have to experience in the coming years. And a lot of orgs are going to cut salary, and it's not really their fault or anything. Like, I think public reaction is always like, oh, they're trying to underplay the players, but it's like a realism thing. As we go through this esports winter, is that some players will have to go through like a 20-30% cut, and it's the only way that the org can survive, because they have a responsibility to the other players as well as their staff. And the second big thing I would say is just social responsibility to sponsors, because they keep the orgs alive. I think Team Liquid has done a great job, for example, with Alien, where it's like a multi-year sponsorship, and they keep coming back, and it's sponsors like that kind of keeps orgs alive. But the big part is the orgs have to be responsible when they promise like deliverables. Or else it's like a 1 year, 2 year deal, and then they're out of the ecosystem, and that money's gone. So it's like everyone just got to try to be more realistic about their financials.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
My name is Ethan Garcia. I'm with Tony Sports. My question is for Toast. So first of all, welcome to the LCS. So obviously we've seen, just like with your Valorant and your Game Changers rosters from earlier this year and last year, you've brought with you a massive fan base of not just fans of those respective leagues, but also fans of yourself as a large content creator. Do you foresee that these content creator-led orgs like Disguised and Noise Esports are vital to the future and longevity of esports, or do you think that this is kind of just testing the waters of what could be greater in the future?
I think for NA right now, we're still testing the water, but content creator orgs were like kind of the originators. When you look at TSM with Reginald, even Steve with Liquid way back when, I believe you were like briefly a player.
Yeah.
Living in a house with just like playing with elements and stuff way back when. Yeah. But people, it's been like so long that people kind of forget. In NA, there was a lot of content creator orgs, but if you look at outside of NA right now, you have Ibai, you have like Bruno with Loud. They just add a significant amount of narrative and storyline to keep the league going. It's just because they are more dialed in terms of like building a story. So the formula has worked for people outside of NA. Right now, NA is just going through, because we're so fractured, just like 10 different orgs in NA, whereas in like Brazil, it's just like Loud, that's so dominant, an entire country can get behind one org, and same with Spain with Ibai. But here in NA, it's a little harder because everything's kind of split. It is cool to see creators get involved, and my hope is like Mr. Beast, who's been talking about League of Legends for the longest time, will get either an NACL org or an LCS org, and his entry would just end up like raising the entire platform because of all that extra eyeballs.
Hi, Carbo Dexerto. Believe me when I tell you I was really hoping my interview with Toast wouldn't make this Q&A too awkward. I'm glad I did. You guys took it well. But I wanted to ask a little bit about the sustainability of the Tier 2 scene, specifically with Steve, since you're one of the people in Chile, right? Do you think that there is any sort of path to a self-sustaining Tier 2 league? And if so, what do you think would need to change to make that happen?
A Tier 2 league and sustainability is honestly pretty hard at the moment. I think there are kind of a minimum amount of spend that you need to budget in order to run an academy team, especially in the state of California. And so in order to drive enough revenue to cover those costs is difficult. I've spoken openly about this, but I'm of the opinion that we need to rethink the design of Academy to begin with. The whole purpose of Academy was that it would operate as a path to pro, so that you could be a player anywhere and get the golden ticket, or know exactly what it was like to have a pathway into LCS. I don't think that currently exists. You know, even though we have Academy, the percentage of players that promote from academy into LCS is lower than we should expect as a metric based on the total cost. I think on average, like when the LCS teams were all spending on academy, it was somewhere north of $7.5 million per year. So for $7.5 million per year, you should be getting a number of players that are promoting from academy into LCS, and that means that we need to rethink something. Maybe we should be more innovative in our approach. And then even speaking with a lot of coaches, you know, do you scout players from academy? It was actually, in speaking with a lot of coaches, it wasn't that. It was that they knew of a particular player, and then they got to know their attitude and their behavior and their mindset and their passion for the game outside of what you see them playing just in their academy games. And they didn't actually value their performance in academy because they felt like, oh, they're not playing against LCS players, so we can't really take that into account. So I think we should be rethinking the type of program that we have. That being said, I think it is also a good entryway for owners to come in and figure out what it's like to run a team and work out all the kinks, and you know, hopefully have some of those owners promote into becoming LCS owners. And you know, for what it's worth, I appreciate that the new ownership in LCS. You know, Andy bought in this year. You know, Andy's been so passionate about this. Like, his team just beat ours yesterday. That's the type of ownership that you want in the system. People that care, that want to win, that want to drive revenue and create content and create fan bases. We need more of that. And so if Academy is a pathway for ownership into LCS, then I'm okay with it.
Thank you very much. We are approaching time, so this will be the last question.
Hey guys, Mike Kelly, Donnie Sports, nice to see you. You've all mentioned that it's no secret that the LCS is getting younger, both on the stage and in the stands. I want to know from your point of view, how many chips are you pushing onto the next generation in terms of your business model?
So one more time, so how are we investing in the younger generation?
Exactly, how are you going to bring them kind of, you mentioned the emergence of Gen Alpha and all this, how much emphasis are you putting on the next generation of both players and fans?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add one comment, which is, you know, we're always looking at what games are currently being played by the younger generation. There's an interesting statistic. I was actually sitting down with the COO of Play Versus a couple weeks ago, and I was asking him, what is the highest played game in your esports club across all the high schools in North America? Guess what number one was? Roblox. No, Mario Kart. It's kind of interesting. It was the most competitive title with the most traction. So, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, you have to be paying attention to what games are currently being played. And, you know, sometimes it may not have a whole esports ecosystem, but you can still be involved with content creators and players and content. So for us, we're always listening and trying to have team level representation in the games that are being played.
All right, thank you very much. Unless there's any final statements regarding the question?
I just want to say congratulations to you for yesterday, and you know, good luck today. Yeah, good luck. You're gonna need it.
It's happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys paying attention to us, writing stories on us, following us, and sharing, you know, our stories to the world. So thank you.